Okay, y'all. So we are back with another couch convo, and we are going to be talking about my journey to full-time entrepreneurship. At church today, this sermon was titled "What's in Your Hand," and I think it's the perfect segue to this because the reason why I got into entrepreneurship in the first place is because literally God told me to use what was already in my hands. So let's take this little journey back down memory lane. Basically, in 2020 is when I first started dabbling in entrepreneurship. And I say dabbling because when I first started doing it, I was doing it more like a hobby. Like it was like something fun that I did on the side. And the reason why I started at first was because I had got a few prophetic words about being an entrepreneur. My brother is a creative, he's an entrepreneur, he's been in this crazy world for a lot longer than me. And so whenever somebody gave me that word, or when I heard God telling me like, oh, I want you to be an entrepreneur, I was like, but what is the business? Like, what do you want me to do? Because in my mind, if I was an entrepreneur, I need to have like a business, right? I need to have like a product or a service. And I just didn't see myself having that. I went to school for business. My bachelor's is in business administration. I came out of school, I was working in like healthcare, doing project management. And it wasn't until things slowed down during the pandemic in 2020 that God told me that the business was already already in my hands. And so that was project management. And so basically he told me that I was supposed to take the same skills that I was using in my corporate job and transfer them to other people. So small businesses, creatives, entrepreneurs. And so starting in 2020, I started like going to some online, during the pandemic, I started going to like some online like huddles and like master classes and stuff like that, just about like entrepreneurship and building your brand and promoting and marketing and stuff and all this stuff. And that's like when I got connected to some people who became my first clients. My very first client was a friend of mine, and he's an artist. And when I first told him that I wanted to, be an entrepreneur, like, get into project management, he was like, well, do you want to work with me? And I already like supported him, in his endeavors, but not formally. So we made it official. He was my first official client. And the other clients that I had from there was just through word of mouth. Like if people knew me, were in this space, and had seen me work with someone else, then like they, would ask me about my services and stuff. But I never really I never had a website, I never marketed myself. And really because I didn't have the capacity to do so. Like in 2020, well, like from 2020 to 2023, the only clients that I took on was clients that like I knew. And that was because I was working a full-time job. And so I really couldn't promote my services because I didn't have the capacity to bring on new clients like on a regular basis. So that was kind of the journey. I was like dabbling in entrepreneurship, doing some cool stuff. Like I got to put on like some cool art exhibits. I got to work with some cool brands. Like we got to do some cool marketing projects, like lots of fun, creative stuff. And I feel like even though I'm a project manager, because I get to work with, community and culture and creatives, like that kind of like brings out the creativity in me. It really just like fuels me. The reason why I was so passionate about helping small businesses and entrepreneurs is because I could feel the impact greater. Like when you're in a corporate job and you're like working, in a bigger business, like I was working in like a company that had lots of thousands of employees. And so like, that like your work is impactful, but you don't see the impact right away. When you're working with an entrepreneur or you're working with a small business, I was able to see how my impact, how, the structure that I brought to the table really helped them to go further, faster, or achieve their goals or whatever it is that they were trying to do. So it really just like fueled me to continue to work and grind, because like I literally would work during the day and then take my personal client calls in the evening. And I did that for like 3 years. And so then it was funny because literally every time God told me to do something, it was a setup, right? And so like, 2020, he told me to like, okay, start doing this business. And then in 2023, he transitioned me to be a full-time entrepreneur. But the other thing that I thought was like super interesting was that, so in 2022, one of my friends had went through this program. It was a women's entrepreneurship program through eCornell, and it was sponsored by Bank of America. And so she told me about it, and it was really great. It was online. So I signed up and I got waitlisted, right? And then at the beginning of 2023, maybe like in January or February, I got an email and I was like, oh, congratulations, you got accepted into the program. Sign up for your classes. So I signed up for the classes and I put it on my calendar. It was like, maybe 6 to 8 courses over the span of like a few months. I put it on my calendar and I forgot about it. When I lost my job in June of 2023, literally the very next week is when this women's entrepreneurship program started. Like, it was not a coincidence. God was setting me up all along to be a full-time entrepreneur. And I know one of the things I talked about last week was the mindset shift. And so, when you're working in corporate America and, you're making a paycheck every week, well, I'm talking about myself. When I'm making a paycheck every week and I don't really have to depend about it, it's like, okay, I save a little bit here, I spend a little bit there, but I didn't have as great of a savings as I wanted to. So, when I lost my job, I kind of got into this mindset of like this poverty mindset of like, oh, I can't spend. I was like, working, doing, whatever, doing my thing. And I had already had a trip coming up in September to go to Dubai. And then, like that, I was like in my mind, like, okay, can I still go? Like, what should I do? And basically some of my friends, had to like teach me, some of my entrepreneurship friends had to teach me that just because I'm an entrepreneur, just because like my work equates to my pay does not mean that I need to live in this poverty mindset. Like there is still like, basically they had to remind me who God was. Like literally God would not bring me into the life of a full-time entrepreneur for me to make less money than I was making in corporate America. Like no, God wants me to make more money. And so I had to think bigger and not just think of like, oh, let me just make enough money to pay for my bills. Like, no, let me make enough money to pay for my lifestyle, to pay for other people, to be a blessing to others. And so I had to, after I had, the savings set aside, then I began to just change my mindset about money and spending and all this stuff and investing in myself, a lot of times people talk about like, rest and making sure that like you're taking care of yourself. And just like, when you're in corporate America and you get like vacation days, when you're an entrepreneur, like you have to invest in yourself. And so investing in yourself looks like taking rest days or taking a vacation and doing all this stuff. So I was really excited, and blessed to be able to not just be a full-time entrepreneur, but also be able to travel across the world last year and do stuff that like I really just never saw possible without having a regular job. So that's my journey so far. From working in corporate America. Like I still love corporate America. I love the structure. I love, leadership and climbing that ladder, but that's just not where God wanted me to be in this season. I still do have like some corporate clients, but like on a, like as an independent consultant. And so, I don't know what God's trajectory is for my life. Like maybe one day I'll be back there. But I will say that all of the jobs that I've had, like even starting at the age of 16 up until now, have prepared me for what I'm doing right now. Like I can think about tangibly some different things that I learned, like I'll give you a real life example. In one of my jobs, I did a lot of like processing paperwork. So like, legal contracts and invoices and all this stuff. And so now being on the other side of things and working with corporations, I'm able to share some of those same skills with entrepreneurs about having a contract, making sure the contract is looked over by a lawyer, having an invoice. What are your payment terms on the invoice? Is it net 30? Is it net 15? Like all these different things that like I kind of was annoyed about doing in my corporate job, I'm now able to pass on that same experience and guidance to the entrepreneurs that I work with. So this video is getting a little bit lengthy, so I'm gonna stop it here. But I will say that this is like something that I like to say, I'm not an open book, but if you ask me a question, I'll tell you a story. So if you have questions about my journey, the entrepreneurship, please ask your questions in the comment section and I will be sure to respond. So I'll see you guys next time.